that doesn't happen in a vacuum. We need white people to be allied with us to make sure that the United States government is honoring those very treaties. So that's the largest part of what we're here to talk about. The objective of this session itself is to just learn how to build upon shared values and establish trusting relationships with Native and Indigenous peoples, who are among the first to face direct consequences of climate change. This and their intimate connection with the natural world offers key considerations in securing a livable world for all. When we think about how we live, when we do our art, we are certainly putting what we believe into that art and in our daily lives. We want other people to be able to start thinking and praying daily about the world around them and what that means and how tied you really are to it, and get back to that. So I'm going to be introducing Richard Haw. He's a Native Hawaiian, Rob Allen from Sitka, Reggie Mitchell, Ciara Green, and Jamie Judkins. Some of them are going to be on Zoom, as you can see. Hi, everybody. Good to see you out there. Ciara Green is a citizen of Nez Perce tribe. The Nimipu culture and traditions emphasize environmental stewardship and drive Ciara's academic, professional, and personal endeavors. She has her BS in chemistry from Northern Arizona University, where she researched environmental transport and stabilization of uranium on the Navajo Reservation, and completed internships with the Nez Perce tribe, Department of Energy at Hanford, EPA, and the Institute of Tribal Environmental Professionals. Ciara earned her MS degree in science teaching at Portland State University and currently serves on the Nez Perce Tribe General Council Resolutions Committee, is a contractor for curriculum and program development focusing on culture in the STEM fields, and is Native Environmental Science faculty at Northwest Indian College at the Nez Perce site. Welcome. Reginald Mitchell is a proud member of the Navajo Nation. He is Bitterwater, born for Salt Clan. He is a fifth-generation silver and turquoise artisan. He's taught martial arts and self-defense for more than 20 years. He was introduced to CCL by his wife in 2017. Well, that's why he's got to do the work. And brings his broad understanding of Indigenous wisdom and Eastern philosophy into his volunteer work, daily life, and lessons. He reminds us humbly and respectfully seek guidance from the guardians of traditional knowledge in our search for solutions to today's problems. Rob Allen was born in Kodiak and raised in Sitka, Alaska. He currently has a communications and leadership consulting practice with his wife, Robin Sherman, Cape Decision Consulting. Rob recently finished almost 5 years as the CEO of Sitka Community Hospital with a successful merger of it with, I believe it's SEARHC, S-E-A-R-H-C, Regional Healthcare System. Currently, Rob serves on the board of directors of Atika Incorporated, the ANCSA Urban Corporation for Sitka. He is currently the chair of the board of the Sitka Sound Science Center. Rob also served a term on the Sitka City and Borough Assembly. Richard Haw is a Native Hawaiian, a local farmer and businessman for over 4 decades, an advocate for rub a slipper, folks, and a supporter of local renewable energy. He's retired from farming now and dedicates his time to establishing solutions to address the rising energy costs on Hawaii Island. It won't be the biggest and the strongest who do best in these challenging times of rising prices, Richard says, but those who adapt to change. There are solutions that mean our children and grandchildren will not only be able to afford and stay in Hawaii, but thrive. Richard has a deep connections with the Hawaiian culture and with the Native Hawaiian community. Jamie Judkins, to my right here, the only real person here, I think, or actually live person, sorry. Jamie Judkins is the treasurer of the Welpa Bay Enterprise Board, the business arm of the Shoalwater Bay Indian Tribe, of which she is also a member, and their tribal planner. She has been an integral part in moving the enterprise forth in developing the tribe's oyster nursery and in the development of the tribe's first oyster co-op to utilize the tribe's 700 acres of oyster and clam beds. Her work has encompassed food sovereignty, policy development, enterprise development, coordinating collaboration, and she is a strong advocate for her tribe's self-sustainability. I'm going to give you everybody like about 6 minutes or so to speak on the following subjects. So kind of all or one of the subjects. One, a specific topic they might like to address on the panel topic itself, which is, seeking trust and guidance on becoming allies with Native and Indigenous peoples. Maybe how you're affected by climate change and what kind of alliance you need to see, and if you see a need for order to deal with those impacts. So let's start off with Ciara.
All right, good. And I'm going to try and share my screen here, and you let me know if that doesn't work out.
All right.
How's that so far?
So far, it looks good.
Okay. All right. So, monique Glasapokas Lichis, Asmimi Pukaslapo. My given name is Sapokas Weekus, and that means thing that causes survival in our Nez Perce language. And as Robbie stated, I'm faculty at Northwest Indian College now. And per our introductions, and I know 5 to 7 minutes isn't much time, but I wouldn't be here without my ancestors. And so here's a picture of some of the folks. As one of my grandpas would say, I come from good stock. He was a farmer. And on that left-hand side there is Lizzie Cayuse, and newspapers throughout the Northwest listed her as a prominent spokeswoman for the Nez Perce tribe. In the middle there is Pile of Clouds. He was one of the, in the books it says he was a chief, but in our oral traditions he was more of a visionary. Some might say a medicine man. That's not exactly what we called him, but Pile of Clouds, and he really was influential during the Nez Perce War, or the Nez Perce flight, really, from the U.S. Army. And then on that right-hand side, I come from Scottish, German, and Dutch ancestry as well, and that's my grandma, Betty Lou Byford. And so it's worthwhile, I think, to me to give some context of where I come from and where our people come from. And it'll all tie together, I promise. And so this, we're all familiar with this picture of the Northwest, but that dark tan area is the Columbia River Basin, which I always call our homelands. We don't really have necessarily maps that state where our homelands are, but I figure if the rivers and canyons went that far, so would we. So that's what I call our homelands, is the Columbia River Basin. And that light green was one of our first treaties, the 1855 treaty, and then that dark green is our current reservation lines, the 1863 treaty. And traditionally, we were called Snipdaloo, and people who walked out of the mountains. And so a lot of people nowadays know us as Nez Perce. Well, if you're speaking with especially French fur trappers, sign language was really prominent, and the nose was the mountains, and this motion was walking out of. So piercing our nose was what it looked like, but really it was people who walked out of the mountains. It's a little bit of a misnomer. We never did have pierced noses. And now today we call ourselves, like many tribal nations, the people, Yimipu. And like Robin had stated, a land acknowledgement is always appropriate. This is what I started putting on all of my syllabi related to the Northwest Indian College mission, supporting and fostering learning through the generations and dissemination of knowledge. We acknowledge that the land of the Nez Perce site campus is on the original homelands, the Nimipu, of the past, present, and future. We acknowledge the entirety of its history, of this place and honor with gratitude the land itself and the people who have stewarded it through the generations. And I think that's one really simple step of organizations, agencies, nonprofits, schools, cities, counties, countries, countries for sure, that would be a good start, can start, just at least having a land acknowledgement, saying, here is the homelands of where we are now. And so, like I said, that's a good first start. If you don't know whose homelands you're on, that might be a good place to start. For us, in thinking about climate change, we've always followed what's known as a seasonal round. Some textbooks might refer to us as nomadic, but that's not really the case. We had village places that we travel to in conjunction with the plants and the fish and the animals and as they were moving about. So we followed these very distinct patterns across our homelands. And so if we look on here right now, where it's the last day of February, Tamal, and so that's the time of celery. So that is the time of celery, but we haven't seen any celery come up yet, which is actually, it's not surprising. The celery's been coming later. When we look at March, Latital, Bitterroot, with how much land changes have occurred in our relative homeland area right now. On our current reservation, we don't really have Bitterroot anymore. Kakital, so in the spring, when we see these big sunflowers come up, we know that the kakit is about to be ready. So that's where that name comes from, Kakital, time to dig kakit. It's a different root than that yellow sunflower there. So I point out this, a couple of months just to show that we really are in tune with what's going on the landscape. It's really beneficial to have all these climate projections and things like that. But when I'm looking out the window or I'm looking up on the hillside and I don't see the roots yet, these climate projections don't always hit home, I guess you could say. So we're always making these observations every year, every season, and it's all very species specific. But the species specific things can tell us greater things about the ecosystem and the climate that we're expecting to see in the coming months and year. So in partnership with one of my coworkers and community members, really, we came up with this idea of, we really need, we noticed that a lot of young families weren't getting out and digging roots anymore, weren't picking berries, we weren't seeing as many young boys out when we were fishing. Not as many boys were having their first kill ceremonies. And so we really saw this as an alarming fact that, maybe our traditions are being passed on. And for me, on my dad's side is where my Nez Perce side comes from. So I was taught a lot of the men's ways of fishing and hunting. And it wasn't until earlier that I learned about gathering, different things and berry picking and weeding. So, we have two boys and I can teach them a lot of the manly things to do, but I'm still learning some of the female ways. So we thought it was important to, find a way to give adults an opportunity to learn and so they can teach the next generation within their homes. So over the summer we had a program called Nini Punalit, Lifelines of Our Homelands, and we've continued that since. So throughout the winter or the fall and now the winter and then into the spring and summer. It's just something we hope to keep going. The grant monies were limited, but we followed a kind of template of looking at air, fire, land, and water. And taking folks from our community out to places on our homeland, talking about our traditional life ways. But here's what was really important with this, as we brought in the tribal departments. So we brought in air quality, we brought in forestry, we brought in land services and water resources, fisheries to talk with our community members interested in maybe career pathways. And then we also brought in, so this top right or top left picture we have Lewis Clark State College. They do air quality monitoring in our area. In the bottom here, we also had the U.S. Forest Service join us. In this top picture, we also had the Idaho Parks Department, the Idaho State Parks, and then in the bottom right, we had Idaho Fish and Game. So we really made it a dynamic group to come together and talk about what it is that we collectively can do to protect and heal our homelands. And it was really insightful for some of the folks who, their job is to be protecting our treaty rights and considering our treaty rights in their jobs and in their decisions they make. But maybe they, in doing this and coming out to dig roots with us and dig medicine, they realized, I can read as much as I can about the treaty, but it wasn't until I got out here and participated in this that I really understand the value of the treaty. And so, and moving forward, I think there's a couple things that I would suggest folks do in creating these collaborative things that can really move us all forward in protecting our treaty rights, but most importantly, protecting our homelands. And that's finding those allyships, focusing on these cultural values of resilience and humility, sharing, interconnectedness, reciprocity. This is kind of what we founded our program on and invited our partners to participate in building up these cultural values as a unit to protect our homelands. So I hope I didn't go too long, but there was a lot of information I wanted to pack in there. And there's great things that we're doing here in this first country, and I'm excited to hear what the other folks have going on. Katsiaya.
Awesome, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Reginald Mitchell, would you like to go ahead and take over?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're looking good and
Okay, good.
sounding good.
Okay, good. Well, first off, thank you so much for having us all to be able to come together at this time to share. And also thank you to those that put this whole conference together. I know it's probably challenging. And also I apologize for not being there in person. I really wanted to be there, and so you can feel, the energy between each other. I'll do my best to imagine the people there. I am a person that really goes on feel and in what I sense from others, and I'll do my best to, from the far, connect with what I feel is valuable or powerful. And a lot of this stuff is really based on love. I kind of like we said before, I am Twitchini and Aishin, I am Bitterwater War for Salt Time. I come from a matrilineal society, so our women are very powerful to us. Our mothers, our sisters, aunties, and such. We take that wisdom and knowledge very seriously, because if it wasn't for our mother, we wouldn't be here. And that in itself is a close connection to the earth, because the earth in itself is our mother. And what we do to the earth, we are doing to our own moms. And that's how we look at it. And, we need to be able to understand that, as we all know, the earth really doesn't need us, but we need it. It's okay?
That was on our end, not yours.
Okay. Yeah, you all need to keep it down. Okay. Anyhow, we are as five-fingered people. We are all five-fingered people. I really feel like that in itself is what connects us all. We have more in common than we are different. If you want to make a difference in any environment or any situation, we have to be able to come across, with an open mind, with an open heart. Yeah, I see all too often on the Navajo Nation, where you get outsiders or people that are not from the nation. They'll come in, but they'll come with an attitude that says, I know more than you, and you will listen to me. I'm here to help you to be better people. That kind of mentality already, you can see it, you can even smell it on people, and it drives people away. If you really want to be able to make a difference in any environment, any community, you have to be able to lead with that love. And a lot of it has to be able to be connected to that humility, that self-respect, and also respecting others around you. And go into an environment with what am I going to learn? But if you have that kind of attitude, that mindset, you're going to come across in a very gentle and very loving way. And that in itself will represent you and your family and how you were raised, and it shows that you have tremendous character, or you have the ability to be able to reach out and touch people, by just listening and observing. Because if we open this bridge, or if we can bridge this gap, and realize that, that we can respectfully help one another. I don't really do firmly believe, as well as a lot of Indigenous people around the world believe, that the answers have always been there. It is our ignorance and our arrogance that makes us feel like we are superior over the world, superior over each other, and that in itself has been destructive. And we need to be able to realize that, that our mother is sick. And I tell you, if my mom is sick, I'll do whatever it takes to be able to make sure that she's well, because she's my mom. And we have to be able to have that same connection to the earth. The earth right now is sick because of neglect from the children of the earth. As humans, we have a responsibility, sole responsibility to be able to preserve, protect what is holy and sacred. That's us. That's us as people. That's why we're here on earth. It's not to hurt, destroy, rape the earth. We're here as five-fingered people, two-legged people, to be able to preserve and protect. That's where we have our mind. That's where we have a heart. That's where we have the ability to learn and to be able to share. If we have this mentality, this attitude, it'll take us in the right direction where we want to go. I've said before that there is a right wing and a left wing. There are these people that feel like they understand how to run this country. But when in fact what they don't understand is that they're both wings of the same mighty eagle. It is the heart and in the mind, the spirit of this eagle that is missing on the left and on the right. If we learn to be able to understand the wisdom that is in the middle, and then we'll know how to fly straight, the direction that is healthy and safe for us all. Do you understand? Do you understand?
Yes.
Okay, good. I can hear you.
Yes.
That's what I want. We cannot be afraid. When you are leading with love, there's no room for fear. Only deep appreciation and deep, profound respect. When you have love, there's no fear. And so if you have this attitude, of opening yourself, and we can do some wondrous things. I like CCL. I like Mark. He's a good man. And I value the teachings of CCL because I believe that that's the way to go to be able to help, the rest of the country. And it's not the world. You have the right way of talking to those that are in power or those that are leading us. I believe too that leadership is a big responsibility. It has nothing to do with money, but it has everything to do with health, mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional health. And our relatives, the sea creatures, the flying creatures, the crawling creatures, they also, if we learn to listen and watch them, they'll teach us how to build and care for the earth again. And at this point, this is all I have to say. Thank you.
about that. Next, I'd like to hear from Richard Hopp.
Aloha. You know, the old Hawaiian way, we used to have a gift economy. In a gift economy, the more you give, the more you receive. And today, what we have is a market economy, and sometimes that's in conflict. So, you know, when you're interacting with the local people here, it's wise to listen. To listen very carefully. Don't come in with the preconceived notion or feeling like you know all the answers. Because there's a lot to learn from people just by listening. And that is one of the most important things that you can do interacting with folks here. And if you need to come in and do something, then try to figure out who in the community you can talk to and go with to meet everybody else, if you can possibly do it. Anyway, that's just my advice, you know, for trying to interact with the local people here. We here on the Big Island, we're on an island, and the ancient people were all about the land. It wasn't about anything else but to make sure we take care of the land. And what we have today is a conflict. And the conflict is we are taught to pursue exponential growth. But exponential growth on a finite planet is not sustainable. So we all know that something's not right. We gotta kind of fix it. And you know, I'm here sitting in my house and I look out the window and there's what we call the Kolea birds. Those are the Pacific plovers. Now, they've been around for 120,000 years, and they fly off in April to go to Alaska, 3,000 miles away, without stopping. And their primary source of energy is bugs, food. Now, I'm thinking, gee, they'll probably be here another 120,000 years. I don't know if we're going to be here. You know, so I always look at them and I wonder how do we fix this? But anyway, so I wanted to give you a little bit of background. We farm on the northeast coast of the Big Island, and it's like 40 miles down one way and maybe up to the summit of the mountain, which is about 12,000 feet high. And we have northeast trades, which is predominant, and that's where our water comes from. And if you multiply inches times square feet times square miles, you'll end up with 1 trillion gallons of water falls on the land annually. Can you just imagine what that is? You know, even us, it's a pain. But, you know, once I told this I was just driving him around, and I was just going back into my high school kind of giving excuses for the rain, and he told me, "Why do you think everything is so green?" Only to choke myself. Anyway, so what happened was that, you know, we farmed and produced 6 million pounds annually of bananas and 1 million pounds annually of hydroponic tomatoes. And 10 years ago, our cost started rising. And it was 2007 when we noticed this. And so I figured, I better go find out about what's causing this. And it was related to energy. It was related to oil, the byproducts, fertilizer, plastics, and all these different things, yeah? So once I realized that, I started going to these conferences. I ended up at 5 of these conferences. And I'm not a scientist, I'm just a farmer. So the first thing I learned at the first conference was that the world had been using twice as much oil as it had been finding, and had been doing that for the last 20 years. And that was in 2007. Fast forward to today, and it's even worse. In 2007, we were relying on the oil coming out of Alaska and deep water. And it was only about 4 million something barrels per day. And it looked like all the figures showed that we were in a permanent decline. And it was so bad, understanding that and realizing the implication, that I actually went through the 5 stages of grief. So 2 years later, I went back to another conference, this time in Denver, and by this time, shale oil all of a sudden started to, come to our attention. But this guy, Art Berman, was on a panel discussion. He's a geologist, and he said that he had studied the characteristics of 4,000 of these shale wells. And I was sitting in the audience, and he said, the average shale well, 90% of the average shale well comes on in 4 years. I had to look around, I was stunned, because that implication is that every 4 years you gotta drill another one just to stay even. And that's probably why we have 90,000 or so of those shale wells in the US right now. Now, another thing, today, 60% of all the oil that the US is producing comes from shale wells. And since then, technology improved the productivity of these wells, so now it lasts only 3 years. So from a farmer's point of view, I'm like, holy smokes, are you telling me that, let me go back. Art Berman talked about the Barnett Shale when he described that it was it lasted for 4 years. Now that same play, 10 years later, is in permanent decline. We've found about 11 of those plays. Most of them are stable or in decline already. The last few, and the biggest is the Permian. And the Permian has a problem because, when in all of the different shale plays, the oil companies go and drill in what they call the sweet spots. And only about 10% of the whole shale play is made up of sweet spots. So now they're starting to drill in between wells that they set up, and they're starting to cannibalize their own wells. So it's starting to make us very scared, because there's a lot of data out there and that I've been very much aware of, because I've been following this for 10 years. And we don't really have that much time yet, so that's why I'm involved in this, because we all know that when the shale oil starts to deplete, the price will rise. And when the price starts to rise, it'll be the folks on the lowest rungs of the economic ladder that will suffer the most. And so from Hawaii's standpoint, what are we going to do? We have sun, of course, and wind and hydro. But one thing we do have here on the Big Island of Hawaii is geothermal. And the thing about geothermal, which is we are really fortunate to have, is that geothermal runs 24/7. And then it'll be over the hotspot for 500,000 to 1 million years. So which tells you, or at least told me, that the cost of the heat will not rise. It will be the same thing, not like oil. So from that standpoint, we're very lucky. Now, from the standpoint of climate change, geothermal is also very, very good, because not only is it 24/7 power, we don't have to go anywhere to manufacture batteries. Dig up the stuff out of the ground, heat it, melt it, transport it all the way to over here. it just comes out of the ground. So that's what we're doing, and as I mentioned, it's green. There's no carbon associated with it.
Thanks.
Um,
Thanks, Richard. Can you wrap it up real quick? We gotta try and get a couple more in before it ends.
and what I'm describing is what existed before the coronavirus came out. So everybody's attention is pointing in that direction, but actually what's going on underlying that is just as important.
Richard, we're gonna have to move on.
Thank you, Richard. Appreciate it. So, Rob? You wanna-
Thank you. Am I coming through okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, well, thank you for having me. My name is Rob Allen. I'm Tlingit. My name is Lukshipki. I'm an Eagle of the Kagwantan clan of the Box House and grew up here in Sitka, Alaska. What I want to do is give a little bit of background on the Alaska Native organizations in the state and a couple of aspects that I see CCL could use, that we're using here at the local organization to try to be successful with those organizations moving forward and getting their support. So Alaska is a little unique in the country in that we don't have the reservation system for most of the people here. We have one reservation, which is Metlakatla, way down in the south part of the state. Otherwise, it's mostly tribal governments, and the tribal governments are at the village level, most of them, and have a government-to-government relationship with both the state and the feds. We also have a series of corporations, for-profit corporations, that came out of the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act. They're at the regional, urban, and village level. I'm on the board of Shiatica, that's the local Sitka Native corporation, and it's involved in logging as an example. We also have a tribal health system that is very strong right now. It's all over the state. The state is split up into 13 regions. There are 13 different corporations that provide health care, not just to the Native people anymore, but also to more and more to everyone in the community. And then we also have some very large associations. The main one is the Alaska Federation of Natives, which represents pretty much all of about 190 of the tribal governments, most of the regional corporations and Native corporations. And we also have, on a regional level here in Southeast Alaska, the Alaska Native Brotherhood and the Alaska Native Sisterhood. Those are member organizations. If you look in the state right now, throughout the state, it's pretty amazing, especially in the healthcare field, all of the interesting things going on revolve around Native organizations. They're the ones that are trying different things, bringing in lots of resources, and very dynamic. It's really great to see. So again, mostly in the healthcare field, but also in the business. Some of our largest corporations in the state are the Native corporations in everything from oil field support to mining, fisheries, logging, tourism, and a growing field is federal contracting with the federal government. So two of the things I wanted to focus on that, again, we're trying here at our local CCL level, and I think will be very helpful as we try to get support. One is that emphasizing the benefits of the carbon reduction, the economic advantages of the carbon dividend to tribal citizens, shareholders, or members. So been working on that, trying to incorporate that into our information, is that this could be a real economic driver for Native people in the state. That dividend could be very helpful. Alaska Natives in most of the state are rural and in the lower economic rungs, and often both. So again, we're working at the Sitka level. We're working on this with the Sitka Tribe of Alaska, with the Sciatica Corporation, the Tlingit and Haida Central Council, which is one of the regional groups, and also with the Alaska Federation of Natives. We're at the early stages of this, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to report some progress and success on to you in the coming months. The other big thing that we're focusing on, and I think is very important, is just getting the young people involved. One of the real good examples of this was this past October, the Alaska Federation of Natives had their annual meeting, and again, the membership of that is 191 federally recognized tribes, 170 village corporations, 12 regional corporations, and then just many individuals. 6,000 people were in attendance. And one of the deals that they do at these annual meetings is they pass a lot of resolutions. And one of the resolutions that came from the elders and youth group, and it was resolution 19-556, a declaration for climate change state of emergency in Alaska. I really recommend that everyone go to Google and look up the Alaska Public Radio Network's news story on this event and the resolution. It was a very contentious debate, almost an hour long. It was presented by a 15-year-old and a 17-year-old, Juana Potts and Manina Peter. And one of the main speakers that spoke out against this was the chair of the Arctic Slope Regional Corporation. And that is the largest corporation in the state. They have a very large presence economically and big investments in the oil field support business. So they had some pretty impressive people speaking against it. But if you go to that news story, you will hear the young people speaking so passionately, and so passionately, in fact, that they were able to overcome that, and the resolution was changed very modestly, but it was passed. And I think a really good example of local youth, or young people being able to help move and speak passionately and help move this forward. We saw this again even here locally at the Sitka level this past week. The Sitka local government, the Sitka Assembly, was trying to pass a similar climate emergency resolution. And of the 25 people that showed up to testify, 10 to 15 of them were high school students. Unfortunately, that measure failed, but again, the passion that was there by the young people, I think we'll move it forward in the future, too distant future. At the national level, I think that the National Congress of American Indians has a youth commission that has also taken up some of the climate change language, as well as the UNITY, which is the United National Indian Tribal Youth Organization. They also have climate change on their agendas. So I think that is a real key part of how we can move forward successfully, is really getting the youth involved, and then focusing on the economic side of what this can mean for members. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jamie. Jamie Judkins, Shoalwater Bay.
Hi, thank you for having me. I was added in the last hour, so short and simple. So I've worked for my tribe for the last 10 years at Shoalwater Bay. It's a very small 336-acre reservation on the lower coast of Washington on Willapa Bay. And traditionally, we don't have a treaty. We don't have fishing rights, we don't have hunting rights. We have access to whatever is on those 336 acres. And so it's been hard to keep our culture and to be a part of fighting climate change. We can't expand. We don't have a waterfront that is workable and to put fisheries on. We've slowly purchased land to try to participate in the shellfish activities and try to continue our culture there. But I think one of the biggest ways that we can work together is to honor those treaties and those rights that are given to these sovereign governments. They have a lot of power within these sovereign governments. Our treaty was not signed because our people, there were 11 people that were still in our village at the time that the treaties were signed in 1866. And they refused to sign because they were trying to make our people move from the area where they knew those traditional places were to gather and fish, and they wanted us to move up north of the Chehalis River. And traditionally, we never went that way. We didn't, we just didn't know that area. So our people just didn't want to go. We were traditionally Columbia River and all the way up through Willapa and the lower side of the Chehalis River. And so I think just honoring those traditional areas so that we have some kind of influence on protecting the plants and the animals of the area is really important. Because so something we've recently started working on is an adaptation plan, which I know many of you know about. And we're trying to identify plants and animals that are suffering or could suffer or have disappeared. Right now, because of the logging industry in our area, we've lost huckleberries in our area. There's nothing to be found on our land in that respect. We used to have tons of them, and so that's really sad to us. Indian tea, we used to have access to that. It's no longer in our area. And focusing in on the water, I would say that the top 3 issues that we are focused on as a tribe in our future to sustain our people: the sea level rise. We're currently working on a move up the hill because we are at sea level. Our entire reservation pretty much is at sea level. So if the sea level rises, we're going to slowly disappear. The big one, obviously, is a big problem, and they're predicting that the land will drop 5 to 6 feet. And again, we're at sea level, so we need to definitely mitigate that. And then erosion. We also face a lot of erosion in our area. There's a beach just a mile north of us called Washaway Beach. And we've recently changed the name of that to Wash Away No More, because a lot of people took it as, oh, we can dump our garbage there, it'll disappear. So Wash Away No More. And those are the top 3 issues. And we talk about it all the time in our community. With Tokeland community, there's about a population of 500 in our area. We have 405 tribal members. Only 84 live on the reservation because we're very land poor. We've been purchasing more and more land adjacent, just trying to expand to safer areas. And we are constantly planning for the whole peninsula, you know, because they're with us right there. So we include our whole community, non-tribal too. And we are the first ones to be building a 2-story, 400-person vertical evacuation tower. And that will be in the lower Tokeland Peninsula area, because we, on our end, where the reservation is, are close enough to the hill that we could just get up the hill. But tsunami, earthquake, big problems in our area, and I also work with our shellfish a lot and our enterprises, and that has led me, just being a part of those conversations in the county, hearing our commercial fishermen talk about, you know, ghost shrimp and things like that in our area, you know, acidification. Ghost shrimp are taking over, and it's hard for oyster farmers to get out to their oyster farms. And I mean, I've heard of whole areas like not being able to be farmed anymore. And me as a planner and somebody that likes to get to the roots, you know, why is this happening? You know, where's the sturgeon, their biggest predators? Where's the salmon, the other predators? You know, what is going on down south of us? You know, where they migrate from, and I'm a firm believer in getting to the roots. So I'm trying to focus our planning on sustaining the future through getting to the roots.
Thank you. thank everybody, all our panelists. I really, really appreciate everybody being here and your great words, and I hope people understand and heed them. A couple things, we need support as well. We're going to support you guys. We need support. There's the Chinook and the Duwamish are trying to regain their federal recognition. I think it's criminal that they are having to go through this again and through an endless court system. The Shoalwater Bay Tribe, I think we could do better by them and making sure that they can grow and that they can do the things that they're legally actually supposed to be able to do. And remember that Native tribes have a capacity issue. We're trying to deal with the federal government on a one-to-one basis. Can you imagine the money and the effort and the manpower it takes? So be patient with us. We don't have the capacity to do what you think we can do all the time. We're caretakers. The tribes have been telling you what you need to do for a long time. Oh, well, that's a great idea. Yeah, okay. Now that it's time to do it again, burning out things, taking care of the water. I'm going to go and end it because she's going to give me the shot collar here in a minute. But in everything you do, every decision you make every day, no matter how small it is, think about how it affects water. If you're treating the water right, you're treating your neighbor right. You're treating your country right. You're treating everything around you right. And it solves things by default. So be good to the water. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
First of all, reiterate my gratitude to those of you who are on Zoom. I'm talking to you at the back of the room and the front of the room because I know that you can't see me unless I'm looking at that laptop. It seems like they see you from here, but they're actually on that laptop back there. So anyway, two of our speakers were planning to be here in person, and they are both disheartened and disappointed that they weren't able to join us in person. And the fact that they still stuck it out and were with us on Zoom, to me, means a lot. And it also means a lot to me that you are all here, because that means you care. And we are excited to continue this conversation and make it more of a discussion. We'll be doing that next door. We'll be talking about some of the things that I've learned in the planning of this process, from a non-native person to non-native people in the audience who come and join us. And we're going to do our best to have Reggie join us, if you're still able to do that, Reggie. Join us right after this for another session, the one that he was planning on leading in person. Maybe he can help us lead it on Zoom. And otherwise, Robin and I will do our darndest to create some awesome content for you. And that is all the time we have for today, but thank you very much, and come next door if you want to continue the discussion. Thank you so much.
This is a revision of my talk that I'd like to get on.
Okay. Pointed out here, which is like this.
It's Sylvester. No. Is that on here or on there? On the stick.
Things happen.